Hello and welcome to Starblood Chronicles, where we talk about everything within and under the stars. I'm your host, Dragonpaw. Okay, today our guest is Yolanda. She is a retired physician from Chico, California. She was in a car accident in 2007. Her Toyota 4Runner rolled over on Highway 32 near Humboldt Road. And so she's a patient in a company that I work for. Let's just say it's in the medical field. And as I would pass by her, we would talk more and more, and it got into spirituality real quick. I guess you could say we had the same vibration. I don't know, but so yeah, she let me in on her experience of her awakening. She was a so-called atheist before all of this happened. Then she was awoken. But anyways, I'll let her tell you guys the story. Let's jump right into it. That'd be cool. Start from the beginning.
I was an atheist most of my life. And when I was in my 50s, I lived up north. I was invited to a gathering here in Santa Barbara at a doctor's house. So I thought, can't be that woo-woo, because my sister was kind of woo-woo at the time. That's what we called it at the time, okay. Yes. And they were going to have kind of like a 4-day conference. I came simply because it was my sister's. My mother was catering it, and it was a nice 4-day weekend in Santa Barbara, visiting my sister. Well, I came, and half the time, I couldn't believe the things I was hearing, because it was all about the Christ and the light of the Christ and invoking the light of the Christ, and all had to do with the Christ. And it was kind of a little bit embarrassing for me to be there. And the other half, I was fascinated. I was fascinated by all of these people, because there were maybe 30 people there. And all of them seemed to be very much following the teachings of these 3 teachers that had come from Sedona. And it was very interesting. They had several guided meditations. They had a lot of rituals and meals and camaraderie, and it was 4 days in a row. By the end of the 4th day, I wouldn't know how to describe how I felt, other than half of me didn't believe, and the other half of me was very curious. So I started practicing the invocations and the meditations, and I left. My life has never been the same. I started meditating. I started waking up very early, which is unusual for me. Crack of dawn.
Same right now.
Crack of dawn, I was up, and I would go for long walks through this pasture. And I would just sit and meditate as the sun was coming up. And nothing ever happened, but I still did the invocations I call on the light of the Christ to descend and create a perfect circle of light and love around me. I call for perfect alignment with the Christ, with my soul, and with all that I am, down to the core of Mother Earth. I call for any energies less than perfect love to be drawn off from all my body cells and planes, and for an infilling of the Christ light. And for this I give thanks. That was it. And then I'm open to receive. And then you just would sit there and wait. And I did this day after day after day after day. After a few months, Mary, the teacher, called me and told me they were having a gathering in Mount Shasta in a couple of months. Would I come? And of course I did. And there was a group that met in Mount Shasta for about a 5-day period. And it was there that this huge awakening happened for me. Every day we met, we did several guided meditations, had our meals, more guided meditations, more rituals. One day we were told to pick a partner, anybody, sit on the floor, our backs touching. So a lady that didn't have a partner asked me, and I said yes. And so we sat together. I didn't know her, she didn't know me. Sat with our backs against each other. And then the meditation started, and the meditation said, visualize a globe of light at the base of your spine. And I thought, well, how do you do that? And as soon as I said, how do you do that? I saw a globe of light at the base of my spine. So at that moment, she says, okay, now that you visualize it, start having it come up your spine. And as soon as she said that, I saw the globe of the lady who I was leaning on. I saw the globe in her spine. And then as I saw the globe in her spine, who was coming up, just like mine, they became one. A big, big one.
Almost like when you blow bubbles, how they...
Yes. Hers and mine just all of a sudden fused into one big one.
Oh, okay.
Fused into one big one and continue going up the spine. And as that happened, it almost took my breath away, and I instantly felt 2 hands on my chest, like this, warm, that I could feel the fingers. And I thought that was my teacher who had come behind me and put her hands here. Mm-hmm. But then I felt another pair of hands, and then another pair of hands. So I had 3 pairs of hands holding me, and I could feel the fingers, and I could feel the warmth. And and that globe, I'm still watching up, so I'm overwhelmed with sensations and with watching things that are just
fascinating.
I didn't know, fascinating and alarming, and I didn't know what else.
Right.
Other than I raised my hands to feel the hands, and there were no hands. But there were the fingers, and there was the warmth. Oh, I could feel the hands. And the globe kept coming up, and as it kept higher, up into my neck, and then she said, now bring it up into your head. And as soon as it came up into my head, I saw this huge cornucopia that just went up like that and then just opened up like this. And I was like this at the bottom. I was tiny. And at the very, very end, you know what a cornucopia is, a horn. And at the I could see into the horn, and at the very, very top of the horn was a little light, tiny little light. And I kept looking up at it. I couldn't hear anything anymore. The guided meditation was gone.
You were in that.
I was totally in this light, tiny thing, cornucopia, me down here. And I'm looking, and then all of a sudden these golden coins started dropping by, rolling. They were as tall as I was. They looked like those chocolate-covered candies that are gold. Just rolling like coins, rolling, and they're big as I am, and I'm thinking, they're going to hit me. And then as soon as I thought they're going to hit me, they stopped rolling. And then the lights started coming down. And the lights coming down, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's the brightest light I've ever seen in my life. Kind of like neon type of light. Bright, bright, bright. And I'm just watching as it comes down very, very, very slowly until it totally engulfs me. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. And it totally engulfs me. And once I'm engulfed in this light, I can't stop crying. The tears are just pouring out of my eyes, my nose. Everything is running. And the feeling in my heart is just, I think my heart's going to explode. It's just this loving, overwhelming, indescribable emotion of being in this light. How long that lasted, I have no idea. I have no idea, other than I could hear people talking way far away in the background. And here I am just laying down. I'm sitting. I'm still in the sitting position. And I'm just sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. And then my teacher comes to me. And she starts just rocking me. And then they lay me down. And they just started rocking me and rocking my body. Like this, rocking until I stopped crying. And then when I stopped crying, I just opened my eyes and saw where I was. And it was like I was just weak. I was barely able to make it to a door outside. It was kind of like a wooden deck. And just sat out there in the sun, and that was the end of the conference for me. I never participated in anything else that night. I went and talked to my teacher, and I told her what happened. And she told me, well, you might want to give thanks, and you might want to write it down, because you're going to forget it. So I did what she told me. I wrote it down. Conference ended. We all came back home. And I'm a doctor. Things started happening to me. I started seeing new, very strange patients that would come in and would just start crying. Because first you introduce yourself, you ask them how you can help them, what you can do, and these people would just start crying. So no history, no nothing. All of a sudden, those hands would appear on my chest, like this. And something would open up on the top of my head, and I would start speaking. And I would be listening to me speaking.
But it wasn't you.
It wasn't me. Those weren't my words. But it was what that person needed to hear. Because all of a sudden these crying people would stop crying and would start listening. And I would be listening too. And the whole time the hands would be here, this would be open, I would be talking. And then, as it was over, they'd thank me. I'd thank them, I'd leave, but I'd feel like I was floating out. And then, I had 2 exam rooms. And then, after every patient, I would go into my office and I would dictate. Mm-hmm. Well, I'd go in to dictate. And I would start going into what I now know is called an altered state, mm-hmm. where you feel kind of intoxicated, very pleasant, very lightheaded. You just want to be there. And I'd have to dictate. So the only way I could stop it would be to tighten up. And I'd say, no, not now. And I'd dictate my chart, I'd let go, and then I'd go see another patient, which would usually be a normal patient, so I could do my thing. But these strange patients started coming more and more, and every time I saw one of them, I would go into this altered state. The hands would appear, the voice would talk, and things started moving. I had shortly after that separated from my husband. Okay. And I had moved up into a very solitary cabin up in the mountains on a lake. And nobody was there but me. And I had a chess table with chess pieces. I'd leave for work, and when I'd come home, the chess pieces would be moved. Always the kings. Always the black king, usually. And there was things started happening that had never happened to me in my life.
Right.
And I had to do a lot of learning, a lot of reading about what is going on, because I don't understand a lot of these things. And my teacher, really wasn't somebody, she wasn't here. We didn't live close to each other, and she was busy doing other things and traveling and doing other things. So I didn't really have a guru, you might say, a teacher,
mentor,
a leader, a mentor, somebody I could ask questions to.
Except for yourself.
So I did a lot of traveling.
That's one. Okay.
I did a lot of traveling. I went to China. I started studying energy. We talked about the Tai Chi and the Qigong. Yeah. I started studying that because a lot of that had to do with energy coming from my hands.
Hot hands, as they say.
Very hot hands. And so I went to China. I've been to Japan twice. I went to China. I've been to Israel. I had to go out of this country because back in those days there wasn't a lot here. Now it's old stuff. It's everywhere. Now it's everywhere. But in those days, it wasn't. And by those days, I'm talking 80s, 1980. 80s. And that, it was the beginning of the rest of my life.
That's awesome. So this cornucopia, was it a light?
Inside of it. Inside was the light.
And so
it seemed like a horn. You know those horns where they blow?
Oh, like an actual horn. Yeah.
Yeah, a horn. It started like where they blow, and then they go big. They curve and they grow bigger.
The sound
like that. And then the light was at the very top. That's what I thought it looked like.
Right.
And then it assumed that shape, and as it came down, it filled the cornucopia. It filled, and like I say, dimension-wise, and that was all in my head.
Yeah.
Dimension-wise, the size, I was about that little, and maybe the opening at the bottom was, say, that big.
So you were inside of the opening?
I was inside of my head.
Right.
Yes, I was at the bottom. I was at the bottom of the opening.
Cornucopia.
No. Oh, okay. I'm right outside of it.
Oh, okay.
And it's right here.
Surrounding you.
So I'd have to take a few steps to step into it.
Okay.
And then it went, but it was huge. It just seemed huge, right. And it went straight up.
And you could see all the way to the tip.
And it was curved.
Nice.
It was curved all the way up, and that was where the light came from. But it was very, very tiny. And as it came down, it grew until it engulfed me. But once it came out, it just was everywhere.
That's awesome.
And that's the story of the beginning of the rest of my life. And it's never been the same.
Right.
And it's never been something I can talk about.
Really? This is not your first time telling.
No, this is not the first time.
Right.
This is not the first time. But what I found is when I've talked about my experiences, and I have at conferences. There have been conferences of like-minded people that I've been through the years. And I've met very, very interesting people like Russell Targ, who's involved in remote viewing. I used to go to where he lives frequently.
Knowing what you know now, is that basically you started channeling? Or how do you see it with your patients?
I see it as something opened up in me that I didn't know was there. A door. A door opened up that allowed something much higher and much greater than what I think I am. Now, in retrospect, I think we are all little pieces of who we are that are an embodiment. Our superconscious self is huge. It's part of God. It's part of Creator. And we, in embodiment, are a very small piece. So we can't possibly access everything that we are and that we have. So I think that people that are in countries Buddhism, for example, they meditate and meditate and meditate and meditate to where some countries there's just a hum that you hear. Om Mani Padme, Om Mani Padme, Om. They're all always in prayer trying to reach that. Trying to reach that. I accidentally fell upon it. I accidentally, but this, they say there's no accidents in life, so I was guided by my sister.
I was going to say.
To go to this, that led me to this, that led me to that, that led me to that, exactly, until at certain points you get overwhelmed. You can't read all the books there are. You can't. Besides, every book is somebody else's thoughts. If you are able to meditate and get direct information, that's the best.
That's the best way.
Anything that you get directly, you know it. You don't read it and somebody else knew it. And it can overwhelm. Ideally, we would all have teachers, but we don't. But right now, I think there are so many teachers out there now that sometimes charge a lot of money. Unfortunately, that I think little by little by little, there's more and more people opening up to other possibilities. And what's true for me may not be true for you, and what's true for you may not be true for many others. So rivalry starts coming up when you share. Because, I didn't experience that. So rivalries appear, jealousies and things like that. That's why I don't share.
That's why I'm creating a space where everyone can be it's like a safe space to tell their stories. No judgment. But it's going to be there.
And sometimes you may think you're crazy. You're crazy because of the experiences that are happening to you. You know, in medicine, we call somebody who hears voices and sees things that aren't there schizophrenic. But you can actually see things that aren't there and hear things that aren't there and be perfectly fine. It's just that veils have thinned and doors have opened, that nobody even knew were there because you haven't knocked. But once that curiosity starts coming in there, I have 3 daughters. One of them, the oldest, she was born awake.
Oh, wow.
And she's been awake her whole life.
And does it run in your family? Or are you not too sure?
Well, in retrospect,
Yeah.
yes,
Oh,
there's
okay.
a lineage. There's a lineage
That
on my
happens a
mother's
lot.
side. On my mother's side, yes. And it came from my grandmother, my mother's mother. And then it came first through something called theosophy.
Right.
And then that's one aspect. But it's so vast. It's
Oh, yeah.
so vast. You can spend your whole life. And right now we're in a very tumultuous world right now. Nothing's comfortable. Everything costs too much. Nobody makes enough. There's not enough peace. Everybody's struggling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a small percentage have everything,
It's very polarized.
and a large percentage have very little. So,
So you have the middle people.
yeah. So, something I understand is going to be happening soon. Soon. Where it's important, your work is very important, that more and more and more people wake up. It's important that they wake up
I think so.
and rise beyond the petty little Republicans and Democrats and who has and who doesn't. And
Yeah.
start helping each other. What Christ came to teach. Love your neighbor the way you love yourself. Be kind to others the way you want them to be kind to you. Little things we can all do.
Yeah, that consciousness.
Doesn't have to be big things.
No. It's actually the smaller things that make the ripple in the lake, right?
Yeah, that's
Everything
right.
else.
One little ripple, one little stone
Yep.
can move the whole lake.
So I have a question. Well, it's not a question, but I've read that because you wanted to become a doctor, that you were naturally a healer already, but that Western teaching kind of takes away that spiritual ability that you already naturally have.
Right.
What do you think about that?
I was healing little chicks that my grandfather was taking to the dump because they didn't hatch in time.
Really?
And I was, as a child, praying to God that, because he had huge incubators, he used to breed chickens.
Oh, okay. But you do agree that you had some
Oh,
healing
absolutely.
ability.
Absolutely. Since I was a little child, I was healing little things. And I would pray to God that I not smell the stink of the rotten eggs. Because there's rotten eggs
Made it unbearable.
surroundings for me to find the cheep, 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 who had managed to break a little bit, but had not managed to get through. And my grandfather explained to me, if they're not strong enough to break through the shell, they're not healthy chicks. But they're alive.
Right.
They're not healthy. Well, I didn't believe it. So I kept going in there, and every time he took out a few, if I could hear a cheep cheep, I was going to find that cheep cheep. And then a neighbor boy saw what I was doing and started helping me. He became a vet.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Oh, yeah, that says a lot.
Yeah. So yes, I always had that. That was just the natural part of me. And I love it. To me, medicine was just like breathing.
Now you have
And
all
plants.
Plant.
Had I not gotten into medical school, I would have gone into horticulture.
Oh, awesome.
Because they're very, very...
I mean, everything's here.
Plants react to
Same.
everything.
Yeah. Everything was given to us.
Yes.
Just gotta find it.
So we surround ourselves by living things and even not living things.
Mhm.
Everything is, we're all vibrating
Vibrating, yes.
at different levels. Everything's alive.
Well,
Everything.
that was beautiful. What do you think? What happened to the lady your back was to? Did she have a similar experience?
She ended up being the roommate of my teacher.
Wow. And you had no prior knowledge?
I did not know her name. I did not know her. I did not know who she was. I had never seen her before in my life. But she was an advanced soul that my light just piggybacked onto hers.
Maybe.
And I think that's part of what it was. I need to have a big enough light, lighter than mine by itself, to open that door.
So, almost like the little chickies. Someone just needed to crack the shell.
That little extra. I think we
Yeah.
all can assist each
Oh,
other.
yeah.
I think
I
we
mean,
all.
that's why I think I was put into this work.
Yes.
I started changing my thought process, and then all my jobs just started changing rapidly after college. And this is the one that I felt most fulfilled in is hospice. And now I'm all woo woo.
Hospice is the end of this life, but it's the beginning of the next.
Yeah.
And I have delivered many babies, and I can tell you that the feeling of delivering a baby, new life, is so magical and joyful.
They're closer
But
to
it's
the
the
divine.
same as holding the hand of a dying person
Oh.
and being with them as they are dying. And then they die. I swear to God, it is as magical and as beautiful.
Right.
The only thing that diminishes death is fear.
Yeah.
People are afraid. And I think part of it is through the church putting hell. You know, you're going to go to hell if you did this or this or this, or maybe you forgot this or that,
Mm-hmm.
and you better go to communion, and you better go to confession, and you better do this, or else you're going to go to hell.
That's the button for controlling. So
Yeah.
Is the fear button.
Yeah. And once you let go of that,
There's no reason to fear.
No. And part of my atheism was because I'm bicultural and bilingual. I was born in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
We came here when I was 3. I went back when I was 8. Came back when I was 14. Went back when I was 16. And I've been here since 20. So I'm really bicultural, bilingual. But on that side of the border, you could eat meat on Fridays.
Yeah.
On this side of the border, it was a sin to eat meat on Fridays.
Yeah.
But with my passport determined sin. And as a child, that did not make sense.
It doesn't make sense even now.
Yes, there are a lot of contradictions and a lot of things, and we all need help.
And that's why it really hit me when you said to connect directly is the best way to get your information.
Oh, absolutely.
So you don't have all these other blockages as I see it.
Exactly.
And that's
Nobody else's thoughts, because everything, think of the Bible. The Bible was written 2,000 years ago. 200 years after the fact.
Right.
So it wasn't being written as things were happening.
No.
It was written 200 years later by people that had been told by people that had been told by people several generations. And then it was put into different languages.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was translated many, many times. Think how many times it was interpreted and reinterpreted and reinterpreted. All the things that happened. Exactly. And then it got written by scribes, people that knew how to write.
Diluted.
And then all of their thoughts got into the interpretations.
Diluted.
and then the misinterpretations and misinterpretations. So what we end up with are what seems to be absolute fact. And then somebody has to interpret it because that was 2,000 years ago. Now, what does that mean now?
Yeah. Changes everything.
So, what do we have to follow? We don't really. If we can get into a meditative state, open ourselves and ask, it comes. Knock and ye shall. Knock. And what is it? Ask and you shall receive. Yeah. Knock and doors will be open to you.
How awesome was that? I mean, the insight she had on birth and death was fascinating. Comment below on this episode of what other episodes you might want me to make. I'm thinking of creating lucid dream episodes, out of body episodes, even extraterrestrial episodes, because I have experiences in that. You can find me on Instagram and YouTube. My links are on this platform. My Instagram is dragon_paw and the number 5. That's it for now. Until next time, my starseeds, have a lovely night.